Hey, so I wanted to make a follow-up video on the video that I posted about the LKL Trapping Experience. I think anybody watching this that's seen any of my other videos can tell that I'm not very good at video editing or making these videos, really. It's it's all a little bit beyond me. Not that I couldn't learn about it and do better, and maybe I will at some point, but just too lazy, I guess, right now. But anyway, I realized, it's gotten, I don't know, a couple hundred views or something, which is surprising. Um, but I think maybe, folks are interested in it. I mean, it makes sense. It's, something that I think a lot of guys, a lot of trappers think about, getting some instruction, and then, maybe it's, I mean, it's expensive. It's an expense, and it's kind of an unknown. So I can see, why there's interest in it. But but I'm not very good at these videos. I'm not very good at editing, and I just didn't even understand. I watched it again because I saw how many views it had, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Um, so I watched through it again to kind of remind myself what I had talked about, and I realized that it had cut off before. I had a whole lot more, not a lot more, but a couple minutes more discussion on it, and I don't know what happened. Like I said, I'm not very good at this, making these videos or editing them or uploading them. I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest with you. So, but for some reason it got cut off. So, I talked about the accommodations. I talked about kind of how I came to decide on the LKL versus some of the others that are out there. Um, but what I wanted to talk about, a little bit further about the LKL is, we had students from a pretty wide swath. We had students from Minnesota, students from South Dakota, students from Kentucky, Kansas, Missouri, Pennsylvania. So it was a good group. It was a big group. Really great guys, really great stories, great experience. A couple of them were, I mean, I don't think they would say it, but to me, they're big numbers guys. 100 coyotes in a season, which is to me like wow, mind blowing. Um, and they had, you know, really good ideas about equipment and techniques and things like that. So it was neat to be able to sit and talk with them and bounce ideas off them, and kind of use some of their experience to my advantage too, in addition to the instructors. So that was great. The bobcat and coyote, like I said, kind of happened a little bit out from the where we stayed there, and that was some of the best part of it to me, was riding around with Liesel and Kendall and asking them as we were driving about the different things that we were seeing, this road ditch coming up, or that crop change over there, or what do you think about this spot. That was really helpful to me, because that's one of the things that I'm really trying to understand is location, kind of macro location down to micro location. So that was really beneficial, and that was kind of neat to be able to ride with those guys and say, how would you trap this area if you were, say this is all one of your permissions. How would you set this up? And kind of pick their brain on the reasons, you know what I mean. And when we were riding with Liesel, we would talk about one land feature, and then what he called multipliers. So, if you've got a two-track, obviously a two-track is a travel way for the most part. I mean, just about any two-track, farm road, forest road, whatever you want to call it, logging road. Those are pretty much travel ways, kind of regardless of where they are. I mean, they're almost always travel ways. If you walk down them, you're going to find scat and you're going to find tracks. But, kind of what we talked about was that, if that's all you got, that might be enough. But if you have that for any stretch, there's likely to be something that intersects it, whether it's a crop change coming, you know, through the field, or a fence line, or another road. You know, that would be a multiplier. And then if that road is short coming into it, and there's a pond, you know, the pond, I mean, everybody knows a pond dams. If you walk the pond dams, you're almost always going to find scat and things like that. So that's another multiplier. You know what I mean? So trying to locate your sets, not just in the middle of the 2-track, but, you know, running up and down that 2-track far enough to try to find those multipliers and put your traps at the best place with the most amount of multipliers that's going to, you know, have the most amount of activity and the most amount of animals moving past your traps, is just going to up your percentage of actually connecting. So that was neat. Great advice. And, you know, another thing that we talked about was getting permission. and Lee had some really good ideas about, you know, the best way to ask for permissions. And then a few little things that I thought were very interesting that I had never thought of. But a few things you can look for as you're driving down the road. You know, areas that are going to attract predators that I really hadn't considered. Some of them are very common, and a way that you can use that very common feature to ask for permission in a way that's makes it very easy for somebody to say yes, if that makes sense. And I'm not going to give it away here, but that was kind of the basis of it, and it was neat. It was something I hadn't thought of before, and I don't expect a lot of people are going to think of it, you know, unless you hear it from somebody like that. So that was really a cool thing that I'm going to try to put into use this season. The mink and the coon, like I said on the previous video, you know, it was really neat because it was similar to how I've trapped coons in the past. I've never really trapped for mink, but the little subtle, not subtle, but the little differences in the way that the set was constructed, the way the trap was placed, just much more efficient. And you can tell when you're learning from these guys that they are big numbers guys, and they're all about efficiency and speed. I mean, effectiveness, don't get me wrong, the sets are all extremely effective, but they're effective in a way that is simple and fast and easy. And they just you know, push aside or knock down all these little, you know, nuances and things that maybe you think need to happen, and they're just like, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's all, you know, just it's all just minutia. It's all just extra stuff that maybe you think you need to do, but you really don't, because this right here, this simple, fast, efficient way of doing it works time and time again. So I thought that was interesting, and it helped me, you know, to think about maybe simplifying things a little bit in order to be faster, because it's a numbers game. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's a numbers game. So the more primping and everything that you do at each set, the fewer sets you're going to get in. You know, your catch is going to be smaller. It's just the nature of the beast. So there's a bare minimum that you have to do, right? You have to bed the trap solid. You have to use good bait and lure. You have to, you know, pick a good location. But beyond that, you know, I mean, there's, you know, people have their preferences, but if you do those things, if you bed a trap solidly, use good bait and lure, and it's on location, you know, then you need to start thinking about what you can not do that you're doing now that's just slowing you down and doesn't really make any difference when it comes to when the animal approaches the set. Subtle guiding was another thing that I picked up on. You know, I've you know, you read the books, you watch the videos, you can't guide a coyote. Don't try to guide a coyote, you'll scare them off. But coming from some guys who catch a lot of coyotes, there are ways you can guide them. It's got to be fairly subtle. You can't be, you know, two giant pine branches on either side, like if you were doing a bobcat cubby or something. But there are ways that you can guide, increase the percentage of that coyote stepping on the pan rather than, you know, on a jaw or on a lever. But it's subtle, and it's so subtle that they're not going to, you know, be put off by it like they would with big, you know, obvious blocking. So that was another good thing I picked up on. You know, again, it was a great group of guys. The food was great. The accommodations were great. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun, and I would recommend it to anybody who's looking for, you know, some good instruction. You know, relatively inexpensive. The fur handling was great too, and this is my first year. This was my first year putting up fur. I sold the NAFA and did actually pretty well, considering just a small number of animals, nothing huge. But I got I think that my top coon sold for $17.50, which I was blown away by that. So, you know, I was working off of some videos on fur handling, and of those videos, so I watched Leon Winchell, you know, the top lot stretcher, the guy who was at the LKL. I watched his coyote video, and I recommend that. It's a very good video. I watched Charlie Mashek and Show Me the Money. That's a good video. And Jeff Dunlap's new one on fur handling is a good video. I've got some videos on fur handling that are horrible. The lighting is horrible. The guy's like across the room in a dark corner, and you can't see anything that he's doing. And my dumb ass bought the video for $30 or whatever it was, and I'm sure they sold a bunch of them. But I mean, whoever made that video and then watched it back and said, "Yeah, this is a good fur handling video," I don't know. But I can tell you that those three, Leon's, the Show Me the Money, and Jeff Dunlap, they're all up close, good lighting. You can see what they're doing. They're explaining what they're doing as they're doing it, and they're very good videos. But to go, you know, be there side by side with Leon, have him show you exactly what he's talking about, and then you actually, you know, go through the motions with him there to make sure that you're doing them properly. It was a really, really good experience, and I think I'm going to be a much better fur handler this coming season than I was, you know, the previous season. So definitely worth it, and very, very good instruction on fur handling. So other than that, again, it was a good time. Had, you know, a lot of good stories swapping, you know, after dinner kind of thing, and it was a good time. So I recommend it. You know, the only other thing is, whenever you go out with an instructor, you know, try to understand where you're going before you leave, because the instructor doesn't always know how to get there. So there's a couple people who know exactly what I'm talking about on that one. So anyway, it was a good time. The LKL Trapping Experience. I highly recommend it, and thanks.